worse. So definitely with decriminalization of, silly drugs like marijuana, I feel like will really help with the amount of people who are going in. And also the communities that people usually go into prison from, those communities suffer from poverty and deprivation, and you see a lot of unemployment. So I feel like if we attack the root of the issues instead of just sending people into prison and they're coming out worse, that would help. And I also think that instead of housing prisoners and just making them sit in cells all day, if we could create a new institution that basically helps develop them as an individual and shows them, how they can use their talents and skills to meet a need in the world, I think that would help a whole lot. Right now, I think that prisons being traded on the stock market basically gives incentives for us to pull people in who shouldn't even be in there in the first place. So that's another structural reform that needs to happen.
We've been strong supporters of veterans courts, and one of the reasons why we support veterans courts is because you can do a diversion or an intervention to save someone from going into prison because they may have hidden disabilities such as one of PTSD, military sexual trauma, or any number of hidden things that they may have experienced in the military. So we do advocate for that. And see, we don't think that for-profit prisons are the friends of anyone because they have an agenda that once they sign on with the state's required to keep a 90% occupancy rate. 90% means that you're on a constant drive to pull people into this quagmire of a legal system just to make sure that you have enough inmates for the state to keep the condition of the private for-profit prisons, which came to the state to say, we can run a prison cheaper than you can, so let us do it. But instead, what they do is they hit the state with penalties that are sometimes 2 and 3 times the contract. Now, one of the strongest advocates that we have in our stable of hosts also deals with the criminal justice aspect, and she has pointed out on our airways in the past that the fact that the states receive these incentives only is driven by the prison guards union because they are often members of ALEC. They're often members of other organizations that drive strong incentive, tough against crime type legislation. While it's well-meaning and intended, it's meant to put bread and butter on the table because the prison guard union is one of the strongest in the nation.
Wow.
And they often seek, through ALEC, crimes that are easier to break. Now, the reason why I'm saying that they're crimes that are easier to break, because have you ever heard of cookie cutter laws?
It sounds familiar. Would you like to elaborate?
Yeah, well, cookie cutter laws is an ALEC specialty. The cookie cutter laws like voter ID laws, stand your ground laws, are ALEC products. And often what happens is these legislatures meet with ALEC twice a year, state legislatures usually. They go back to the various assemblies across the nation, and they take these drafts of legislation that were written at ALEC meetings by corporations that are allowed to vote on this to proceed, and the legislatures introduce it to the assembly as law, often unchanged from the way that ALEC intended it for it to go out. And they get credit for it. So we end up with stand your ground laws. We end up with voter ID laws. We end up with other laws that make it more easy to break crimes that put you in jail to feed the prison system, because companies like Home Depot, companies like T-Mobile, Coca-Cola, McDonald's belong to ALEC and vote on these laws that the public has no input on.
Mm.
You know, I for one am a fan of Theodore Roosevelt, and he was anti-corporatist. And I agree with him. There are very many evils that come out of corporations because you have corporations that are advocating laws for living individuals, and these are fictitious entities. I have a very major problem with that because a corporation cannot serve in the military. A corporation cannot, while it can do a lot of things, it can't vote. But it's allowed to vote and create laws through organizations such as ALEC, which brings it to the forefront. This is why we're encouraged by having candidates like you come forward and talk about these things openly.
Well, what I like to do with situations like this and organizations like ALEC is to create an organization that does the same thing, but we don't do it in a way that hurts people. So, for instance, the basic income idea, or completely transforming our economy so that it's more environmentally friendly and less profit-driven. Mm-hmm. If we can get a group of citizens to come together and create these bills, I would be the one to introduce them. You know, so I really want to see citizens work together more and to become more involved and more aware of situations like this, because one thing I find when I'm out in the public and speaking to potential voters, a lot of them don't really know what's going on. They don't know that there is someone behind the curtain that's basically making their lives not necessarily a living hell, but if you're caught in the criminal justice system, then you are one whose life is being, is being affected. So I definitely want to create new institutions that could basically introduce new laws and really change what American society looks like right now, because I feel very concerned about our current trajectory economically, as far as the environment is concerned, and as far as the social welfare of our people, because what I notice is that the standards of living is going down, but it's going down quietly, so no one really notices it. But if every mall becomes a dead mall, every school becomes a bad school, and the economic crises become more intense as we go along, it's going to be too late if we wait. So I think now is the best time to get involved, to get active, and to really start to take care of your country. I don't want us to continue to leave it up to those in Congress or those in the state legislators to take care of our country for us. We have to become the change we want to see.
Okay. Well, now, with the universal basic income, somebody might say, well, gee, Ms. Clark, that's awfully expensive. How do you propose to pay for that? What would your answer be?
Well, that is something that is still to be determined. However, there are a lot of government programs that we fund right now that we could basically render obsolete and go ahead and introduce universal basic income, because a lot of the programs that we see that the government is spending millions and billions of dollars on are only Band-Aids. It's not really addressing the root cause of all of the problems. So I feel like UBI is something that we could do as blanket legislation, and then people can move on with their lives. Okay, your life becomes very stagnant if all you can think about is what you're going to eat the next day. It's very hard for you to chase your dreams and be a person of productivity if you can't afford to eat. So definitely I would want to take care of all of the government programs that are treating the symptom of the problem, not the root of the problem. And then there's also a lot of waste, fraud, and abuse in the federal government. So we definitely have to look at ourselves and look at the programs that we have now and see which ones are going to be here for the long term and which ones we can swap out.
Well, I would tend to agree with you. I'd like to add to that list. I'd like to cut some of the foreign aid that we give away. I mean, because we give away a lot of foreign aid to people who hate us that we could actually be feeding the people here at home and helping the people here at home. I mean, if we cut some of that foreign aid, I think that we would have more than enough to possibly help fund a portion of universal basic income. What say you on that?
Oh, I completely agree. I agree. And also, I think our tax structure needs to be redesigned Some people say that our income tax system needs to be completely abolished, and I'm definitely open to learning more about that. But in the meantime, definitely, if we were to create an incentive for the corporations who have money hidden overseas, definitely try to work something out so that some of that money can come back home. That's also more money that we could use to fund UBI. And as our society becomes more productive, and as we, begin to trade, goods and services that are environmentally friendly, like, electric vehicles, and become more of a productive society, we see, income gains from that. But right now, a lot of the jobs that are available right now are part-time jobs. They're jobs that are low wage, so we really don't see much productivity in this economy, a lot of consumption. So there's another structural reform.
Yes. I mean, this is something that these are just a few of the issues that touch on the problem. I mean, we're looking at wages that have been stagnant now for some time. We can't even get a discussion on labor in the current House of Representatives because there's no labor commission to discuss that. There's no civil rights commission to discuss voting or anything of that nature. And these things were intentionally taken away in the 112th Congress, although nobody talks about it. We talk about it here because these are things that the American public needs to be aware of that have happened under the GOP-led Congress. And while I'm not trying to be a party basher, I'm just putting it where the goats can get it for people to see how the Congress has been restructured, because if you can't discuss things like hourly wages, you have a stagnant standard of living, such as what you're describing in your area, and we see here in California, you see it in Seattle. We had 18 different cities on in January of last year, and of those 18 different cities, we ended up hearing a similar experience through the DAV mid-year convention that, there's no jobs, wages are stagnant. This is what we're dealing with. So we have to build new policy. We have to start, I believe, like you, with the grassroots to address that. And I believe that's part of what we hear and see in and I'm going to say his name, Donald Trump's candidacy, because people are hurting. This is something, there is a forgotten economy that people are hurting, but they don't understand that the corporations, like through ALEC, are writing these laws that are causing a lot of the economic pain. Anyone have any comment, thoughts? Joyce, are you still with us? Hold on. Go ahead.
Yeah, it seems everywhere you go, you get the same statement. Nothing is changing. It's just as bad as the place you spoke to before. And it seems to be getting worse. And let's not talk about the younger generation, the generation of children of the veterans. That is my major peeve. I am disgusted with the way they're treating the children of the veterans. They are lost. They're out there without jobs, without medical coverage. There is an abomination taking place in this country. It's ridiculous. Where is the next generation going to be?